evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, June 1st, 2026 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. Hello, colleagues. We have a full quorum. We are still down one planning board member, and we're continuing to look for folks who may have interest in joining the planning board. The meeting agenda stands with perhaps just a little bit of additional information. At the last meeting where we discussed Rhinebeck villas, we decided that we were going to continue them as they're scheduled for tonight and shown under public hearing, but what we intended was to have discussion this evening in the public hearing portion of that continued to the June 15th meeting. It inadvertently isn't noted as that, so if folks do later wish, because of the confusion, to speak to the villas when we get to that, we'll allow comment at that time. You have Jim's meeting notes. Any questions or comments regarding those?
Move we accept.
Motion second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. You have in draft form the May 18 minutes. Any corrections, additions?
So move we accept.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Hearing none. Aye. The motion carries. Correspondence and announcements. Gretchen, anything? Anyone? I have a brief announcement. This is just general information for the public. Recently, we have been advised, and Jim says this is happening more and more, about a scam that is taking place. Letters are being sent out, in this case over my name, to applicants. We're assuming that the information is being gathered somehow from the Google Drive or what's posted online about upcoming meetings. But basically it is asserts to be from the Town of Rhinebeck Building, Planning and Zoning Division. I've heard it's happened in Red Hook, I've heard it's happened in Poughkeepsie. And this is basically alerting these applicants. It's an official reminder, you owe us money for your application to continue, importance of the application review and approval fees, very extensive next steps. You have to reply to the email, settle the issue, wired instructions, return a signed copy, and the fees that we can see attached to this are pretty astronomical. Most people see this and understand that this is a scam and not real, but I have heard of at least one occasion where money was actually forwarded to the scammers. So some of you sitting here are applicants or would-be applicants. If in the process something like this comes up, or in talking to your friends and colleagues, please make them aware of this unseemly situation.
So, Gretchen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Town of Rhinebeck does not take money digitally, period, right? Everything is done by paper. So if you get a request for payment digitally, it's not real. The town doesn't do that.
Okay, new applications. This evening for sketch plan review, we have Michael DeCola, 72 to 152 Eastgate Drive, for sketch plan. Michael?
Hi, good evening. I'd like to use this moment to clarify some parts of the law that were unclear in our pre-submission meeting, and just get some idea of what it is I'm going to be bringing when we do actually have our first meeting.
Okay, you're going to start with explaining to the board what it is you want to do first.
So we have submitted a plan to build a farm brewery on the property on the Mill Road side. That includes a tap house, the brewery itself, and a farm kitchen in what we've submitted so far.
And by submitted, you mean?
For a building permit. We've applied for a building permit, which you guys have, which is why we got to the permit. The lack of clarity in terms of how the process goes, because there are so few of these ag applications, and every time I've done one, it's been a little bit of a different path, is determine what we actually have to bring and what part of the site plan you guys need to look at. The town law is pretty explicit from my perspective on what requires a site plan, and there is a strong argument that was made by Time Bond that this does not reach the cutoff for a site plan review. So that's the first step, is to determine whether that's even necessary. If it is necessary, there are some terms in the law and the way that the town law is written that are a little bit confusing. So we need to determine what an ag management structure is. There's a specific part of the town law that talks about ag management structures being exempt from type 2 seeker and exempt from site plan review. We had some discussion in our pre-conference meeting about what an ag management structure was. Some talk about whether there's actually a missing comma there, whether it should be ag management, comma, structures, comma. That was something that Michael Trimble brought up the last time we went through this process with the Equestrian Center. So I need some clarity from you guys. We need to come to some ideas about what these terms mean, what our process is, so I know what to bring you before I start hiring the consultants to come in and present, because I don't want to spend money on things that aren't required, and I want you guys to know exactly where your lane is before we start the process.
Could you explain what it is that you want to do? Because many of us are sitting here not having much of an idea of what it is you're proposing.
So we would be
Let me
building.
just say, Michael, this is why
We
we
submit.
need this
Yeah.
for this evening for sketch plan, because we're trying to work through with Michael where this falls in review and what we can review and what we can't. And so we wanted to give you all the opportunity to know a little bit about it and to ask the questions now that will help him decide all of us which direction we're going in. So thank you for that question.
And also just, it's because certain things under ag would not need to come in front of us? Is that really what we're,
Yeah.
the details of it, like, does this fall under the planning board, or is it considered ag, in which case it goes straight to building?
Well, so the law, as we read it, says that if we're building anything under 15,000 square feet, it does not require site plan review. The question is whether these structures fall within that. They are ag structures, there's no question about that. Ag market says they are, the town says they are. That's not a question. But there may be partial activities here that would require some site plan review, and I want to know exactly what that is. What we presented was a sketch of where we'd like to locate the buildings. This, as you see, is Mill Road. This is Eastgate Drive, which is the existing entrance from the Mill Road onto the property. Those existing solar sheds are there on the map, and so that's the impact area. We're still
Where's the building? I'm still trying to understand this drawing.
yeah, the building would be in this area,
Uh-huh. And then,
and this is a turnaround and entrance to both the back and the front of the building.
and roughly, what is the size of the building?
We're still trying to figure that out. I think we're going to be in the 4,000 to 5,000 square foot footprint.
And what goes on in the building?
So there will be a tap house, which is sort of the public face of selling the spirits that are distilled in the beer that's brewed. And then a brewery and distillery itself, which will be back behind the tap house. That is a 2-story or story and a half design that we're doing it right now. That includes lots of equipment, shiny stuff that makes the beer and liquor. And then a kitchen area.
And the front of the house where people will be, how many people does it accommodate roughly?
We're trying to figure out a table count right now. It's very much limited by the septic. It's not large. But that's what part of what we're trying to figure out.
Is it under 100? I mean,
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And is it mostly a tasting room? Is that the idea? It's rather than food service?
Well, the state liquor authority requires that you serve food
Uh-huh.
if you have an establishment that's serving
Beer,
drinks.
wine.
And so, we will be serving food. And it'll be hopefully kind of a very friendly pub-like atmosphere.
Is it food that you would have with a glass of beer, or is it dinner?
I mean, it could be both.
Uh-huh. So it could be a restaurant essentially.
Well, no, it's not. It's a tap room.
Okay.
We will serve food. We have to serve food.
Right.
I think given the way we like to do it, the Farm Kitchen allows us to serve prepared foods. And so what I'd like to do is be able to do prepared foods that are served, so more like tapas.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And a pub,
Yeah.
burgers.
Yeah. We're not going to do a deep fryer. It's not. But there will be other things there.
And where is this? Yeah, I know where this is because of the sheds, right? And it's on lovely Mill Road. It's kind of quiet. Scenic
Bucolic,
Yeah.
agricultural, rural.
Yeah, all these are agricultural and rural things that we're doing.
Do
I'm
we
hearing
get a
a lot
say in
of-
any of this stuff?
Well,
That's what I mean,
all right,
before we
so-
get to this discussion, I don't even know if we get a say in that.
Well, okay, and John can chime in and Jim can chime in. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we did have, and I've forgotten her name, I apologize now, the woman from, the farm, the ag navigator from the county was
So
able to
she's
sit
part
in.
of county planning. I didn't even realize that she's not part of Ag and Markets.
No, she's not part of ag,
Yeah.
but she is employed by Dutchess County. She's known as the ag navigator.
Right.
And her job is to help facilitate successful ag operations in the county. And that can be working with farmers in terms of improving their land. It's however you want. And we asked her to attend the meeting, so that she could provide inside information that we don't normally have because we don't see these. But my understanding in the past is that the fact that it's ag and markets does not mean that a town can't have opinions or weigh in certain aspects of this kind of an. For example,
Well, the
issues
town-
surrounding traffic, lights, hours of operation are things that the town does have a right to comment on.
Sure, and Ag and Markets says that if they're reasonable,
Yes?
that the town can actually be very involved with what's going on. I'm looking at what's written in the actual town law,
Mm-hmm.
which says that it defines these activities very clearly
Mm-hmm.
as not being subject to lots of what you're talking about. So that's what we
Expedited
need. Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
Expedited review is a term often used regarding ag projects that come in.
Pardon me for taking this out. This is my screen for the documents that I have.
Did want to ask you before we go on, you were going to be looking for the correspondence that you had with Michael Trimble regarding this. Were you able to locate that?
What I did locate, and I can forward to you, is a letter that he sent during the process for the equestrian center, which did include a building that was over 15,000 square feet, so we did have to come in.
Okay.
But that it was type 2, that it was a type 2 seeker, which I think we've
Okay.
decided it is.
There's no, yes, we're not,
Yeah.
this won't be a type 1, it would absolutely be a type 2 use, and it is permitted by ag and markets, so we don't really have a say in saying no.
Right.
But I do believe that the town has the ability to review this under site plan criteria. Michael and I have a disagreement about the writing in the code, he thinks the comma should be there, it isn't there, I can't make the determination that it should be. So an ag management structure is where this is kind of hinging right now. If it's considered that an ag management structure is in fact a physical building, then the way the code is written, it probably does not have to come before the planning board. The question is an interpretation of the law the way it's written. And so I can't make that interpretation, the board can't make that interpretation. It has to be done by the zoning administrator, and it goes back to the ZBA. So that's kind of the sticking point, but we don't disagree, it's a type 2 use. Ag and Markets does allow the use, but the board, I believe, has the right to review it for site plan, but there's a question on the way that this.
And we did, in our pre-con meeting with Michelle Collins, we did have an exchange of.
Trying to figure it out.
We had a great conversation. And we did say, with an ag navigator, I said, I believe the types of questions that the public and the planning board would be asking would revolve around traffic, lighting, noise, hours of operation, parking, signage by the road. In my opinion, that covered what I thought would be the big ticket questions that we know that we would be getting into. So that tonight was to present that to you to see if, from your opinion, there are other things, or if those are the ones that he needs to be considering. John, is there anything you want to add to what?
No, I don't. I mean, there is limited authority on the part of planning boards to have some review over agricultural uses like this. So we'll have to sort the interpretation part of it out and figure out, you know, after tonight's meeting, maybe the next step is sort of clarifying what the issue is and then figuring out what the procedural means is for resolving it. Just for the benefit of Michael, who may know this already, and also for members of the public, when questions of interpretation arise with regard to what the meaning of the Rhinebeck zoning law is, the Rhinebeck Planning Board does not have the authority under the New York State Town Law to interpret the zoning law. That authority is vested in the, first in the town's zoning enforcement officer, and then if there are disagreements about the result of that determination, then that can be appealed to the town zoning board of appeals. So that may be where this question ends up having to go in order to be resolved.
Is the basis of the question whether or not a site plan is required?
Site plan review.
I'm sorry?
There's a question, given the town law, the way it's written,
Whether site plan review
is required.
is required.
Yeah.
I see.
Here's the, Jim is
It's
bringing up
this
this.
section right here, so it's item number 3, and it reads that ag farm management structures and practices are classified as type 2 actions under secret and shall not require site plan approval, except that farm buildings and structures with a footprint greater than 15,000 square feet or which exceed 80 feet in height shall require expedited site plan approval from the planning board in accordance with those standards listed below. So again, nobody disagrees it's type 2 action under seeker. We know the building's under 15,000 square feet, there's no question about that. I did just a Google search of farm management structures and did find farm management structures to be listed in a lot of places as essentially a document, essentially how you manage a farm, and that's the farm management structure. But it's an interpretation I can't make. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment. If it does go to site plan, I just want to say that, you know, ag and markets does provide a lot of protections for farmers. So if we want something like traffic, and what I put up here before was actually a slide from, this is a PowerPoint that was made by someone from ag and markets a couple of years ago. And it does talk about what the town can take a look at. But one of the things that the law also does state is that you can't do anything that creates excessive costs on a farmer. So for instance, traffic, we can ask about traffic. I think we could ask for numbers as it relates to the Green Book, which is the traffic guide. But I've seen specifically, we can't necessarily ask for a very detailed traffic study because of the expense related to it. So we can ask for the numbers and we can get estimates and things like that. But the extent to where we would go with it, like we would with like a type 1 use, isn't really where we could go based on my read. Those are all things to discuss, but that's kind of where I'm falling at the moment if it comes to that.
I'd like to respond to the ag management structure, because I think that that's really what...
This is the sticking point.
This is the sticking point, and I think that if you don't believe that that means any structure on a farm that is part of the processing, I mean, the zoning law of Rhinebeck lays out pretty clearly what those items are and defines them as part of agricultural activity. So if you don't think that it's any structure on a farm that has to do with production, sale, processing of a crop, which is everything that we're proposing, then you need to be really clear about what it means.
Well, that decision isn't going to get made at this board.
Well, I think that to say that you don't know what it means is, it feels pretty wishy.
I don't know what that means.
I don't want to say something meaner.
Just say it. What do you think it means, that the board's biased, or?
I think it means, so I'm trying to find a better word than lazy, but I think it's clear what the law intended.
Well, that's your opinion, and
Yeah.
you're entitled to it, and it's not lazy. The board has to stay in its lane with regard to jurisdiction. I let you talk. That's what the law is, and the question will be whether, I haven't looked at enough of this, or this is really the first time I'm seeing the presentation. But we'll have to look at this and decide if the board doesn't know what it means, and that happens. That's what the ZBA is there for.
I've been through the process.
Yeah, okay, then, right. So, we have to figure out what it means. It's not lazy, it's just there's a process that has to be followed, and we have to follow the steps.
I'm totally empathetic to what you're saying. I guess where my comment comes from, and the strength of it, is that the law was written to align the town with ag and markets in a way that gave it some ability to comment on activities, but to match the law. And ag and markets recommendations are very clear that all structures related to the operation, processing, all of those things are protected. And so I think to say that we don't know what an ag management structure is, given where the impetus comes from, feels either it was poorly written. There's a lot of possibilities, but from my perspective as an applicant, it's pretty clear what was meant.
Understood.
Yeah.
And we have more work to do. I know that you've spent time thinking about this and working on it, and that's good. But, the board's got to get its arms around what the question is and figure out, what the route is for getting a resolution so that you can move along, and
That's why we're here.
we'll try to do that.
And Jim?
No.
Well, what I was going to say is, and that's precisely why we advanced this as sketch plan tonight, because Michael is trying to thread the needle here in terms of what questions would a planning board have so that he can just begin to deliberate what he can tell us, what he's willing to tell us, and where he, so we need to just tell him that.
Okay, so I have a question for tonight. What materials have you provided to the board?
That's it.
This is what I've provided so far.
A map?
The map,
Okay.
and a description of what we want to build.
Oh, so there's a narrative, and is there a description of the use?
It's in the application that we want to do a farm brewery distillery.
Okay, but I mean more than just that. I mean a description of how the building is going to be used, and some at least light discussion about, for instance, it's open to the public, there's going to be parking, there's going to be these kinds of events. In other words, that's the kind of detail that is going to be necessary to understand what it is that you're proposing, and then to look at the term and to see what is, and again, just for folks in the audience so that you understand, the zoning law is written by the town board. And so the planning board doesn't write the zoning law. There are rules within the law that tell people that are reading the law how to interpret it. There are rules of interpretation that have to be provided, that have to be followed. But in order to do that properly and to decide whether we know what it means on its face or not, which is a possibility, it doesn't have to go somewhere else to be resolved. The board needs to have sufficient information about what's going to be built there and how it's going to be used, so that that information can be applied to the term, and then a determination made about whether we understand what the term means or not.
So I understand that and I can provide that. I'm not trying to hide anything, and I want to go through some kind of public process because I think it's necessary, but I'm also trying to avoid stuff that I don't have to do.
Yeah, well,
And so-
I'm trying to do that too,
Yeah, yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
because if it turns out with more information that there's, the definition is readily understandable, and let's say for argument's sake, it conforms with what you're advocating for tonight, then you avoid a trip to the zoning enforcement officer and the zoning board of appeals, which makes for a shorter route.
So part of what we presented with this was a document that makes the suggestion that according to the town law, because of what we want to do, that this is part of this class of permitted uses that do not require site plan. And I think that what will help me as the applicant is if we're not there, that I know exactly where we're not there.
You're really buying a car online?
In other words, you guys have to figure out what this law means for you. Tell me what I should come and show you. That will include a conversation with Ag and Markets and whether that's reasonable.
Well, I believe that Ag
I'm not
Navigator
sure I
felt the
agree with
questions
that.
that we raised in the meeting were reasonable.
Yeah, but she's not Ag and Markets.
Well, okay.
No, she's not. And I.
Yeah, but it also, let me just say, interpretation of the Rhinebeck zoning law is not in Ag and Markets jurisdiction.
No, it's not, but
So-
specific states, when this becomes you talking about our submission, then it becomes specific case. And I have the opportunity, which I think I'll take, unless it's fully within how we're looking at this, to say to the Ag and Markets zoning folks, law folks, does this seem like a reasonable ask? Because I don't know. I don't know what's reasonable as far as they're concerned. And they may say, absolutely, they can ask all that and give them the following things, and they'll give me help.
Yeah,
about where to
understood.
go.
But I think you're one move ahead of where we are now.
No, that's right. I can't go there until this becomes a specific case where you say,
So where we are tonight, I think, is we are saying that we're going to have to look at this,
yeah,
and we're going to have to look at this part of the zoning law and what it means. We're going to have
Yeah,
to determine.
and I, just in terms of helping yourself, I think that a narrative that contains a reasonably detailed description of what's going to be built there, you already have a map with how it's going to be laid out, and how the facility is going to be used, I think is the information that
And
the
a general
planning board
description,
needs.
that was part of what I want to hear from my colleagues.
Yeah,
tonight
understood,
is
understood.
the things that we raised as, from my perspective, having looked at these projects in the past and looked at other projects along the road, what are the kinds of questions that the planning board and the public would be asking? And I think we talked about traffic, hours of operation, lighting, noise. Those were some that immediately come to mind with this type of an operation. Are there others that any of you around the table would be, if you were reviewing this, looking to see answered?
Special events.
Okay?
I think the town code defines what an agricultural use is in terms of the town code. And I think it mentions the production of crops and raising of livestock and I think all related activities. And I'm not thoroughly convinced that this is related. And I would like to know how this is distinguished from just building a restaurant on a horse farm. Is there something about the crops that are raised on the property that is essential to having this means of delivery?
so in order to qualify for a farm brewery license, we have to produce a significant portion, and it's been increasing, of the input.
Is it over 51% now?
Yeah, it might be even more next year.
Okay.
Of the input that goes into
The beer.
the beer or the wine, or the spirits. So that includes grains
Mhm.
and then hops. And we have both planted, and we are working that out. So that piece is going to happen, and that's a piece actually that we go through with the liquor authority, but that is what's required of the farm brewery. And if you look at the Rhinebeck zoning code and the letter that we sent, that Ty Bond sent, it's in the package. It pretty clearly defines much more in depth what Rhinebeck Town Code considers agricultural activities, and it includes wineries, it includes, of course, activities on farms. So there's a lot of things in there that are considered agriculture and farming by the town of Rhinebeck, not just the state. So you guys got to look at that.
Anything else? I just want to give everybody a chance, and then I want to move on.
Yeah, okay, and I just, it's my feeling that the reason why that's in the town code is to protect the humble and essential practice of farming. And
Well, if you want to come down and disc the 20 acres of barley that I've got to disc this week and do that farming, you're welcome to be humble and...
All right, I'll turn to this end of the table.
Michael, having that character is really informative, and it puts me more at ease.
We have, this brewery will secure between 20 and 40 acres of planted land to feed it.
Okay. Elise?
I was just gonna, I know everything's online, but just to speed up the process, Jim, could you just send the link of exactly where we're meeting and get email to the group, just to simplify our detailed review of everything?
Yep.
That's it.
Sharon?
Where is it? You said there was a building where you're going to actually make the,
It's the one, all in the one building, the tap house and the
is that,
distillery,
Yes,
did you say that?
they're adjacent practices.
but they're under one roof.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, because you said something about a turnaround, so I was confused.
that's the area behind, on the side of it, that big round area to get trucks in to deliver grain and material to the top.
Sean?
The grain after we grow it has to go out to get malted and then come back.
Oh, Sean, anything? Okay, and I think the only other thing that came up in pre-comment was an open-ended question was, for example, would you be anticipating or hoping for expansion in the future of other manufacturing operations? Not to be answered today, just,
Other manufacturing in terms of brewery distillery, like an expansion of this operation?
that was the open-ended question. And it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but it came up in the conversation about, is this the beginning of a multi-phase project that you imagine in the future or not?
No. This is a standalone business that we're starting very small and growing depending on how well it does.
So growing is a possibility.
Well, if we're selling out all our beer every
Well,
year.
so growing is a possibility.
That's a great thing. And the truth is that we can't,
Trying to use agriculture terms here, Mike.
yes, we can't grow huge because of the way the license works.
Okay,
There's a limit on the amount that we can produce.
so those are the kinds of things that in the narrative that John's suggesting,
I'll be happy to.
that.
The license limit should be in there, just
Sure,
for information.
yep, okay.
Anything else? So,
Just one thing, you had mentioned that to some extent, the size is limited by the septic and
The size of the tap room.
the size of the tap room.
It's
So
limited by the
what is that limitation? Is it
It's flow rates and the soils that we have.
okay,
So the size of the pad for the number of tables is a huge, it will be the most expensive part of the bill.
okay.
Yeah.
so, let's start.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I know I'm not supposed to ask questions.
You're right,
We live across the road.
yes.
Mike, could you go up to the screen, or may I ask Michael to go up to the screen and point out exactly, like where you have your god-awful shade sheds in relation to that, and also the
It's
red
right there,
barn?
the shade sheds are right on there.
But I can't see from there. Can you just point where Mill Road is?
This is
Where
Mill
the
Road.
shade sheds are? I can't see because he's in the way, too.
Okay,
I'll be happy to stick that.
this is Mill Road,
From my
Thank you.
god-awful shade shed.
and here's the
Yeah, two of them.
two of them.
Okay. So, thank you, planning board members. You're going to be working on
I'll get you there.
stuff. We will be working on our, at speaking, John and Jim and I and others will speak about the question that's been raised. We'll circulate that section of the zoning law to planning board members for your feedback and comment.
If you also circulate the one page or page and a half response that Time Bond put together, which kind of clarifies at least our position on the law and cites the law.
We'll get that
It'd be
package
helpful.
together. Yeah, we'll look at what you submitted to the pre-conference, and we'll put that together, and we'll get some input from John and Kim.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We are now moving into the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting. First public hearing this evening is Rhinebeck 2020 LLC, now Route 308 minor subdivision, a re-subdivision into 3 lots. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Cassandra Ember, and husband Sean Caldera. I'm here tonight representing 2020 LLC.
I'm not sure we can hear you. I can hear you.
I'm so sorry, I'm also very short, so.
I'm sorry, I missed my opportunity to fix the microphone for you.
So I just want to give the board updates before they open the public hearing. So we have submitted an updated plan. I apologize, my cover letter that was recently submitted said that we would be submitting these. That was not happening. I apologize. We have submitted plans that answer all of Jim Levy's concerns, including topography and building outlines. We also have submitted plans that address, we referred the project to the town fire inspector, Bob DeLuca. He pointed out that he had concerns regarding the emergency code for the driveways. We have since added hammerheads to the driveways. And we also referred it to Brian Knapp from the Rhinebeck Fire Department, and he was fine with the project. On May 8th, the state struck down the wetlands law, as you're probably aware. We have since conferred with Jim Levy, and he has stated that we no longer need to get a JD, as it is no longer applicable to this project. We also, I have reviewed the easement, and I have confirmed the easement area for the Central Hudson easement is not impacted by the driveway. It's essentially within, as long as no disturbance is proposed in the area of the easement, this will not impact the easement. The easement is in the front, the driveways do not connect. And tonight, we are hoping that we could get approval. The only thing that's outstanding is the DOT conceptual approval. Now, it's not final, but it could be a condition of approval. And it is stated that the driveways were already approved by DOT. It's the same layout. All that's been added is turnarounds to address the emergency code access problems. And then we're just waiting for Mr. DeLuca to get back to us, but hopefully we have addressed his concern.
And you said highway superintendent?
We did not refer it to the highway superintendent. But I don't believe we were asked to.
Because it's DOT road.
Oh, DOT, so New York DOT. Yeah.
Jim?
Just a couple questions to make sure that they're good to go.
Go ahead.
No, there were a couple questions. I think they've been answered. I think I have the old one up here, but I don't think I have the new one up. But yeah, there's a couple questions to make sure that what they were doing was going to be okay with Central Hudson, with the DOT and fire department. So if they're clear, then I don't think I have anything else.
Okay.
Except for the DOT.
Had we already done site visit on this? Did we have site visit report?
It wasn't me if we did.
Hmm?
It wasn't me if we did, so.
Do you recall?
Is that the one I,
No. Did you meet with anyone in the field?
I did not personally, I don't believe Victoria did either. If you do want a site visit, please just let us know in advance so we can stick it out, so it's worthwhile for you to go out there.
I think we were supposed to do it.
Sorry.
My apologies. Well, where do we want to go from here, folks?
In terms of,
Do we have enough information to be ready to make a determination about this application?
yeah, I looked at the new materials online, they all looked very clear to me.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, so we'll open it up then to questions and comments from the public. I'll ask you to come to the microphone, identify yourself, and let us know what your district know more about.
Hi, I'm Michael Gregory. Dandy, my wife and I, and then Roz live adjacent to the property that you're going to develop. And I really don't, all I have is a site map showing where the houses are, but I don't have any information on any of that. I mean, the size of the houses, you know, how it's going to affect us, how large the road's going to be. I know what's existing there because I've lived there for a while, but I'd like, you know, further description of what they're planning on building. I'm not opposed to it necessarily, I'd just like to know. I mean, I see a square, that's all I can tell from that. There hasn't been any other information given to us.
Well, Jen, you want to explain?
I guess I don't need to.
It's before the board for a subdivision of the land. So when we get a subdivision request, we typically ask the applicant to put in a footprint of where the houses would be, show us where the driveways would go. The details beyond that typically aren't required.
Oh, it's not required?
The width of the road is typically...
Well, the width of the road, yeah, and it's on there.
So where the roads will go and the dimensions of the road are on the
I
site.
see that, okay. Yeah.
And the
I
house,
see the road.
and the general location of the house, the envelope where the houses will be. But this is just the subdivision, this is not going into the construction itself.
I see, okay.
That will be in the future, but
Okay.
once this is approved, then theoretically, the next step, once they're sold or developed by the owner, that then goes straight to the building department for construction.
And will there be, you know, some sort of public information on that?
Not
No.
at that point, no.
Not at that point. So it could be a 20,000 square foot house? Who knows, right?
Well, theoretically,
Is that right?
yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, it's supposed to follow what's shown on the plans and the footprint on there, but it's not set in stone. And the way that the regulations work in town, out in this part of the town, on an approved lot with the proper setbacks, after the subdivision's been approved, the house would not have to come back to the board unless there was a special circumstance, like a wetland or something else.
But they do, correct me if I'm wrong, have to be confirming that the capacity is there to develop all three parcels in terms of septic.
Yes.
So you want to explain that?
The capacity to stay for septic. So on a lot that's 5 acres or greater, the requirement is that an applicant provide us with something in writing from an engineer stating that they are confident that the well and septic can be put on the lot, or that the well and septic test pits are actually done. So those are part of the criteria, and those would be based on a specific size house. Again, that's why the house will most likely be sized to what's shown on the plans.
Well, I guess one of my concerns is that we have.
Would you stay up at the mic?
Oh, sorry.
The stick, right?
It's recorded.
Yeah. Oh, I see. One of my concerns is there's a pond on the property. There's been work around it. Because of that, the creek that runs through our property and out through the culvert under 308 is, I mean, it's a lot wetter now than it ever was before. I don't know what kind of work you guys have done in the area there. I know you've done a lot of clearing, which is wonderful, it's beautiful. But I'm just wondering how that's going to affect things, you know, septic and all that. So those are
But
some
you're
of my
saying it goes into the outfall goes under the road?
Yeah. Well, it comes across our property
Correct.
and then runs into the culvert that is on our
Wasn't
property.
there just a recent problem with that culvert that the town fixed?
It wasn't a culvert, it was a broken water main.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of my concerns. I mean, it has affected the wetland area of our property. I don't know, I didn't understand what you meant, that they no longer consider it a wetland? Is that?
Yeah.
Because it certainly is.
So the pond is still there, it's shown on the plans.
Oh, yeah,
And this project was actually approved for a 2-lot subdivision last year, I believe. So coming back in to re-subdivide into 3 lots now, the third one being number 3 on
Right.
the plot, obviously. The pond still exists, and when we reviewed it originally, and I'm going back a year, the proposal for the driveways is following an existing dirt path or something like that. So
Right,
the
yeah.
disturbance that was going to take place was supposed to stay generally in the limits of that existing, double track or whatever's there.
Yeah,
So they weren't
it's not
supposed to
unreasonable.
touch the pond, and that was part of the review, last time around.
Right, I'm just saying that, I'm concerned with, further work that is going to affect my property in terms of flooding and all that.
We have no intention to,
So, of course.
pond, and we have not done his, it's a winter year, everywhere is winter fishing, it's winter lots.
Anyway, okay. No concerns.
Anyone else from the public? Well, could I entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
So, I'm just gonna, this is just what my thinking is. It appears that Mr. Gregory didn't understand the plan prior to tonight. One option you may have is to close the public hearing, but leave the public hearing open for written comment for a period of 10 days, or so it wouldn't carry the public hearing over till the next meeting, but it would give an opportunity for those who didn't understand the plan until tonight to provide a written comment to the board. That's up to you. We've done that on other occasions.
Well, if we do that, then maybe Sean and I could make a commitment to follow through on what we were supposed to do and didn't do. And within that 2-week period.
So you couldn't hear that.
I said if we do that, then Sean and I could commit to getting out there in the next 2 weeks to do the site visit, and we could schedule them in 2 weeks instead of going out a month. So that would give the public an opportunity to respond in writing well, I don't even have a problem keeping the public hearing open.
Yeah, why not just keep it open?
Yeah, we'll just keep the public hearing open, and that would lead then to a motion to continue the public hearing to the June 15th meeting. And so you can then access this. This is on the Google Drive. And you can come back in 2 weeks with additional comments if you want to look at it. You and your neighbors have other questions. We'll do the site visit, and then we'll be in a position, I think, to wrap it up at that time.
I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
There was a comment from the neighbor about work done on the property. What if any work has been done on the property?
They did do some minor tree clearing, but there hasn't been a development, besides the original homes, the homes were built after the subdivision approval. But, so, everything's shown on here except for what's on lot 3 is existing. So the home on lot 3 is built. But it's just a minor tree clearing, there really hasn't been a ton of development on this property.
What does a minor tree clearing consist of?
I think genuinely it was maintenance. I don't even think they've done like a significant tree clearing. I have to confirm with my client, but.
Yeah, well, please do that, because we have had some people commenting that there has been clearing going around there. And we'll make sure that we look at that in that specific area when we go out.
And another question, are the lots, are people already interested in these lots? I mean, they haven't been sold, obviously, because they don't exist.
Yeah, so the lots haven't been sold. I don't know if they're growing interest, but they know they can't sell them until the subdivision is approved, and the lots don't currently exist. So.
And is the idea that whoever buys the lot will then hire their own architect and build their own house?
Yeah, these are single-family homes. That's the purpose. This is not meant to be this crazy development. It's just for single-family homes.
So the owner of these properties right now has no idea what the houses will be.
But pursuant to the subdivision law, that's not part of your scope of review.
Right, and just for purposes of everyone understanding. And
just like any subdivision for residential development, site plan is not required for residential homes, single-family residential homes.
Is the stream classified?
I don't believe so, but I'd have to double check.
Okay, could you let us know?
Yes, I
Thank
can. I'll reach out to the engineer.
The only thing I'm gonna say is that regarding this, nothing is changing on the parcel where the pond and the stream are. That's already been approved by the planning board. The only change is carving off lot 3. Other than, well, the driveway's been widened a little bit and changed,
Yeah,
but generally speaking, it's still the same as it was when we approved it last year for the 2.
Understood. I'm just curious because Mr. Gregory's indicated that there might be a possible change. I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is up to the board's discretion, and I'm not trying to push back on the board too much, but this is literally just carving out a lot you've already approved. So the stream and the pond you already looked at and did a site walk on. I'm not saying you don't have a right to do a site walk, you absolutely do. But really, all you're looking at, and all you would be, like, I'm not gonna say you can't walk up to that pond, but that's not what's really part of this review. It's just the carving of lot 3. None of the lines are changing otherwise. All we did was add lot lines and an additional driveway and widening the driveway base. That's all that's happening. So to claim, I'm not saying that, you know, the neighbors can't have concerns, but it's not really part of what's changing. So their concerns aren't really relevant because we're not doing anything to the pond. We're not changing any of the pre-existing routes.
I think that's understood. I think the board, the purpose of the site visit is just to make sure to verify that the conditions have not changed since the last approval's been issued.
Understood.
And to make sure if that's what the case is, then that can be baked into whatever decision the board makes.
So I have a motion to,
Elodie,
pardon?
can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay.
Going to identify who you are and who you're representing.
State your name.
Delise Berry, my address, 200 Fells Road, Rhinebeck. I just had,
You are not representing yourself as a member of the planning board.
I'm not representing myself as a member of the planning board. Just to answer the tree clearing, it was bush hogging from an already open area. And so I just thought I would relay that to
That's
the
helpful.
state board. There was bush hogging for, you know, so that's all.
Right. And this is all taking place within previously approved lots. It's really just that one
Correct.
corner, that's the only thing that's changing
Yeah, and the slight widening of the
a couple
driveway base.
years ago.
But
Okay.
nothing near the pond, like, we're not touching that entire area.
It's a paperwork issue to a degree, with the exception of adding a house to the property. But nothing physically changing from what was, other than widening the driveway, I should say. But nothing up above that, so we're near the pond, that's all.
I'm waiting for a motion for.
Move to continue to June 15th.
Correct. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you.
Melody, Mr. Gregory, you understand what's happening?
I do.
Okay, so you'll have an opportunity on the 15th to make comments after having looked further at the map. If you don't have any comments, you know, that's fine.
Sure.
If you do have substantive comments, I would suggest that you put them in writing and submit them to the board at that time. It helps the, it helps the board keep an accurate record.
Will do.
Okay.
And it would be just helpful if you have additional comments, if you can submit them to Gretchen in advance of the meeting, and then we have a chance to try and address them before the meeting and not have them do it at the meeting.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I think I asked for a vote. I know I had a motion and a second. Thank you. The next application this evening is that of Brunel Landing LLC, 66 to 68 Brunel Street, site plan and special use permit for renovation.
Good evening, I'm Warren Smith, architect, representing this project, Brunel Landing, which is 66 to 68 Brunel Street in Rhinebeck. This is an existing house built in 1880 according to the National Register nomination. It sort of looks like a four-square, but it's not literally that. And the proposal is to make some renovations to it, but not to expand the footprint at all. So this is sort of an after image as opposed to the existing images. It has 1/1 windows currently. I believe they're not the original windows. The owners would like to make them 6/1 windows, which is not inappropriate for a house of this period and style. But even the photos that I have from 1940s look like they were 1/1 then. On the south side, there is an existing sunroom that was added to the house in the 60s or 70s. with large windows, awnings at the bottom, so forth, sort of typical of that style, knotty pine interior. The owners want to replace the fenestration with something that looks a little more like a traditional sunroom. Casements with multi-panes, again, to sort of echo the 6 over 1 windows that you put elsewhere. But again, the footprint of that is not changing. On the street side, which is never the primary entrance, interestingly, there is a second-story porch and an entry into the kitchen, but the existing access is through a stairway to the south side. There's sort of a key of concrete and brick that meets, and then there's a flight of steps up to the top. That deteriorated, not very attractive, and so after looking at various options, the owner settled on a fairly direct straight stair on the front of the facade, which is again facing the street, but not the traditional front of the house, and then infilling the black panels under a storage area underneath with some lattice to sort of tie it all together and make it a little less haphazard. The primary entrance always apparently was the riverside, because there's a loop driveway that goes around the property. Again, the photos from the 1940s show a glassed-in porch on this side that previous owners, I think also probably in the 70s, removed, and they added a lot of brick. Speculation is that perhaps the Mason owned it, because there's an enormous amount of brick with like a pizza oven on the outside and a great big fireplace on the inside. At this time, there's no intention to remove any of that, but to replace the posts, which are dark wood, somewhat deteriorated, with white painted posts, and to replace some rotted rafter tails that are along the edge of that porch. But otherwise, not to make any footprint changes in the side, but to replace large sliding glass doors with doors that will look more like the sunroom on the south side. Again, bringing in multi-panes to tie it all together. And then you see there's a dormer above the bay that faces the river. The thought is to add a matching dormer on the other side. Facing east, it's an attic that's accessed through a pull-down hatch. There's no intention to put any habitable space up there, but just for aesthetics, the owners thought it would be nice to have a dormer facing the road. This house sits back a little bit from the street, where I think James Street comes into Grinnell, kind of on an angle. Most really probably not going to be noticed by people, but obviously the owners have a vision for renovating the house. There's some interior renovations in terms of the kitchen, taking out more knotty pine and older appliances and putting in new things. But this is really the substance of the application. And I will note that they want to put they want to put AC in the house, so there are a couple condensers proposed for the north side, which is where the loop driveway comes around. And those are pretty much going to be screened by existing landscaping against the house there. There's some large rhododendrons and some evergreens. And on that side of the house, in addition, there is an adjacent separate garage with an apartment above it, so it's like a cottage that will remain. It will remain there, and there are no plans for that at this time, although at some point in the future we may come back. But the driveway again loops around the house. This is a park area. This is not really a garage. It's just a storage area under that porch. And this has, again, an apartment above the garage. But the condensers would be against the house here, and again, it's fairly extensive planting. And there could be more, but you'd have to look hard, I think, to see them. But that's the substance of this application.
Do we have the condensers on?
They're on the elevation.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like plan at the elevation.
Do we? Where?
They're not in the perspectives, but they're elevation.
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's part of the package.
All right, well, Jim's looking for that. Is there anything else you have, Jim?
No, it's, from a planning perspective, it's all just a discussion of historic character and changes to historic property.
Okay. Who did this site visit?
Edna joined me, and Marty from the event.
Edna?
As you can see, it's a very handsome house on a really beautiful site overlooking the Hudson River. It was obvious from the site visit that the renovations, improvements are needed. There is some decay here and there, like on the bottom of the columns on the street-facing side of the house. If it's okay, I'd like to read what Marty wrote. Certainly agree with everything he had to say. He writes, "The overall goal of these improvements is best understood by looking at the circa 1940 aerial of the site. The original front entry of the house faced the river. The street-facing elevation was the rear of the structure. Subsequent changes to the site caused the principal entry to be relocated toward the street. A later infill under the Grinnell Street porch to create a garage or storage area is particularly troubling. The owner's proposal to relocate the entry stair and cover the remaining bays at the basement level with lattice will result in a more street-friendly elevation." So when we were there taking a look, that area was simply, totally black. And it will be a great improvement to cover it with lattice. He goes on, other enhancements to the Grinnell Street elevation include the construction of a new attic dormer to match the existing dormer that faces the river, the installation of a new entry door and side lights onto the east, replacement of the existing 1/1 window sash with 6/1 sash, and the replacement of the existing window shutters with operating shutters. Further modifications include the replacement of the single-pane modern windows on the south-facing sun porch and replacement of the river-facing modern sliding doors with small paneled or small paned French-style doors within the existing openings. All the proposed modifications are stylistically appropriate for the period of the structure. And there you have it.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, or?
No, as I said before, obviously these improvements and renovations are needed. There are signs of decay here and there, and it's just going to be an enormous improvement of the house.
Planning board members? I personally concur with Marty's assessment and do think that the Grinnell Street elevation is vastly improved by the recommendations that are before us.
I agree.
Why was the style of the fenestration changed?
Just the owner's preference. I don't have any photos before the 1940s that show how the house was originally built with something different. It could have been 1/1 in 1880. It was never 2/2 from what I can see. They still look like large paintings.
Yes, and it's one of those things that really, after a while, it makes it hard to understand it as a historic house. When you have a lot of reproduction materials that are brought in, and windows are pretty essential.
Windows are essential.
And I'm a fan of old windows. I'm a fan of, in fact, restoring windows, and if the insulation is an issue, supplying removable storms, rather than ripping out the windows that exist, and maybe have existed for over a century.
But I think the windows that are there are not the original windows. They appear to be older replacement windows.
The openings themselves are not changing, correct?
No.
Or nor the location of it?
Nor the location, right.
Anyone else? Anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? Okay, then I could take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Jim, I think you have a draft approval resolution.
Draft approval resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Grinnell Landing LLC for site plan and special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125, renovations to an existing house at 66 to 68 Grinnell Street, and the RCH and RCO overlay zoning districts, reaffirming the action is type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Based upon submission of the information, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. Asking the board to approve a demolition permit as required by town code pursuant to 125-106 and 125-138 for the addition of the dormer and the roof. With respect to the application for a special use permit to undertake the renovations, finding the work and intended use to be consistent with the general standards for special use permits and granting a special use permit. With respect to the site plan approval, finding the work and intended use to be consistent with town code chapter 125 and approving the site plan by Warren Temple Smith. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction of the 3 conditions listed. Reminding everyone in taking this action, you are authorizing the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant along with details on next steps. And that all plans, sketches, and other materials submitted to the town of Rhinebeck Building Department for any required permits must match those submitted to the planning board.
Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'll poll the board. Louise?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Craig?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. The next public hearing for this evening is that of David Lang, 16 Charles Street, site plan and special use permit, renovation, shed dormer, windows, HVAC. Good evening, Diego.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So as a follow-up, in the last meeting, there was questions from the board that we wanted clarity on. We wanted me to show a couple alternates for the HVAC routing. There's been a lot of back and forth with our client. We went to speak with Ed at the building department. So there's a couple things that would trigger requirements from him to include in the plans. And we were going back and forth with the client. You know, we had a contractor on site. We need a pressure tank. We need to run new lines, the sprinkler system, and everything. They just said, Diego, we just want more space for storage and AC during the summer. So I don't know if you guys were able to read the letter from our client. They want to retract the occupancy, habitable space in the attic, and just keep the dormer for the outside for additional storage and the HVAC scope. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk about. And in the presentation, we removed anything that's related to access up to the attic, just maintaining the pull-down attic door. No stair up there. We're removing the bathroom underneath there, and it's just going to be open space, basically, that they're going to put racks on for painting. She's an artist. And in that, if we can go to the next slide, to the elevations. For Melody, some of the comments that you had was, I mentioned any other improvements that are going to be made during the project, we should note that now. And the only thing she said was that they want to redo the roof as part of that scope. So the roof will be removed, just the shingles, and anything that's going to be proposed new will be matching the existing. Correct, this is the alternate location that we would run the lines. I think you remember in the field, this was the best location if they can't be ran inside. That's our hope. So we would just run them up there to the first floor, into the ceiling cavity, and disperse them up to there, and up to the second floor there. I included the details over the attic vents. They have that like little eyebrow insert piece. And then I think there's another elevation where one of the things they wanted to include in the front elevation, this is facing Charles Street, was they want to increase the size of the window here. This is the size, the facade facing Charles Street, and they just want it to match the width of the window below. It's not an egress window by any means because of its height, but they request that this be approved as part of the package. And I said I would ask. And one of the things they wanted to bring up was that down the road, 10 Charles Street has a window the same size as the second floor in the attic level. So those are the changes from last month's presentation.
So what are we left with?
So we're left with the dormer, but nothing inside, and the window on the front facade being made a little bigger width-wise, and then the HVAC lines.
And also, you're still doing windows, adding windows?
Yeah, we're adding the windows, but the size of the window is not interrupting the vents that's there. Basically, there's old vents there,
But there are also windows in the roof, right, that we're not.
The skylights,
Skylights.
yes, that's
Okay.
proposed in the
And so
so,
those are also added.
yes, yes.
But the window in the gable facing the street
Yes.
is original to the building. So that it's kind of not relevant what they have down the street.
I agree.
And I think that when we were there, it was a character-defining window. It wasn't just a window, it was a window that was meant to be the window in that building.
Yeah, I think it also has like a lancet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has like a
lint
little
on
background.
it.
Yeah, I think I may have an image here if you want to reference that, but I said I would ask.
So everything on the inside that we were discussing is gone away.
Yes,
The stair
exactly.
is gone. There's
And the
no
stairs are
windows,
gone,
there's
it's just
no-
an attic space.
It remains in.
That was my question, is how do you get up to the attic? 'Cause I didn't see it on the plan. So
They
it
have-
just was the pull down. So I think with the pull down, it's pretty clear. It wouldn't be bedroom or bedroom space with the pull down attic stairs, unless you guys disagree. So that's my only other question was how you get into the attic, because I didn't see that label, but that's fine. It's already existing.
So at this point, am I correct in saying we are simply looking at exterior alterations to a historic property in Rhinebeck?
Yes.
Is that what
Yes.
what it is? It seems like it to me. Okay. Is there anything formal? I mean, do we need this resubmitted, or is simply him talking about it tonight sufficient to serve as a revised application?
It's okay with me, but I think we need to make clear that we do not want that upper window to be changed.
Correct.
Right.
Also,
Yeah, that was my understanding going through this process, was that the louvers were just going to be changed out for a window,
Correct.
and that was really acceptable.
Because of the birds.
And in comparing the two pictures, I would say that the 16 Charles Street would be greatly altered in comparison, and I wouldn't want that to happen to this nice building.
And I brought that up because we discussed it in field. I said, we can't change the window sizes after.
Is your client aware of that situation and open to leaving the window as it is?
Yeah, I think we would have to be, right?
Well, you could fight it.
I mean, they're retracting that scope because they don't want to keep this going further,
Okay.
so.
All right, just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions?
I just have one question, just to clarify, because I think it's unique to have a pull-down attic, but it's air-conditioned, it has dormers, it has skylights. I've just never seen someone put so much money into finishing a place that they can't access.
It doesn't have air conditioning.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you for the clarification, that helps.
However, if it was actually painting storage, they
Yeah,
might want.
Then you might want it, then you might want it.
You know, I mean, if it was literally a storage area for artwork, then I could see the need for it, but I think does anyone have any other questions?
What is it that, are we going to be approving this tonight?
That's where I'm at considering that, and I'm going to
Okay.
ask if there's any comments from the public. I don't see any. I could then ask to close the public hearing. So let me do that. Can I have a motion in a second?
So moved?
Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Now, regarding this evening. That's why I was asking for clarification that this represents enough information to consider it a revised application. We didn't really get it in advance and have a chance to kick that around, so how do people feel about this?
I would say they've come to a great compromise to where we are today. I can't say anything on here that is out of the ordinary of what they want to do. I don't know if, Craig, you have anything in your mind on that, but I think if we stick to that window not changing and the other, amendable things that have happened with the attic, I don't see any reason to carry this on further.
The only question stands, and I don't know that it derails it. You said they're going to be, as part of this project now, re-roofing the house.
Yes, because
So do we have information about what the new roofing materials will be?
3 patch shingles to match existing.
So if they were simply, if I understand it, if they were simply re-roofing the house, that would generally just go through the building department and we wouldn't even be looking at it. So I don't think that that is a deal breaker here tonight.
Yeah, and I think if that one detail is changed, I would be fine with the new dormer, the location of the HVAC, all the other things that we talked about.
So maybe we're simply asking them prior to my signature to provide information about the roofing materials.
Okay.
Just as part of the submittal, so we have that in file.
Okay. Is that something I can just email over, or we have to present that?
Well, you've got to
next meeting?
submit your final drawings and everything,
Okay.
so it
And
will
we'll
come
put
with
that
that.
in.
Whatever you submit to Gretchen as your final package,
Okay.
just include that.
Okay.
Anything else? Then I think I would entertain a motion.
Did you read the resolution?
Sure, make it up.
Okay,
I don't see a problem, John, do you? I mean,
No, I think the change is
No, I think if you decided on what the substance is, so Jim has it prepared.
okay.
I mean, the changes were we requested with the one minor change that we'll put as a condition in the plans, which essentially keep it as is, right? So, I don't think it's an issue. So what, excuse me, draft approval resolution for the board's consideration for the application by David Lang for site plan and special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for renovations of the home and garage, including in addition to the dormer to the house, mini split units, and to the house and garage, new windows, skylights, siding, and roofing for the proposed dormer at 16 Charles Street. Reaffirming the action is type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Based upon the submitted information, asking the board to find that the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. Asking the board to approve a demolition permit is required by town code pursuant to section 125-106 and 125-138 for the skylights and the dormer. We are asking the applicant to retain the existing opening of the third floor window as is and amend the plans shown to the planning board as such to retain that window. Asking the applicant to, and these are two conditions, asking the applicant to provide a sample of the roofing materials or description of the roofing materials with the submission. With respect to the application for special use permit, asking the board to find the intended use to be consistent with general standards for special use permits and granting the requested special use permit. With respect to the application for site plan approval, asking the board to find the work intended use to be consistent with the materials and site plans submitted. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan subject to the 3 conditions listed. And again, reminding everyone in taking this action, the board is authorizing the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant along with details on next steps. And in this case, all plan sketches on the materials submitted to the building department for required permits must be the same as those submitted to the planning board with the exception of the conditions listed.
Can I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Poll board, Kurt?
Aye.
Edna?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Sharon? Aye. Delise? And I vote aye. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That brings us to our last public hearing this evening, and that of Rhinebeck Villas. Let me clarify, I know some of you have come in a little late since the beginning of the meeting for this. I did announce at the beginning of the meeting that there was some confusion about this showing up as public hearing this evening when we decided at the last meeting this would be discussion of the planning board and that we would continue the public hearing to June 15th. Because of that confusion, I did indicate that if there are people here present tonight that wish to comment, we will allow that, providing that we are not giving comments that we've already received. But if there's new information or new comments, I will honor your desire to present that to me. So, Sean?
Good evening, Sean Kemp on behalf of Rhinebeck Villas. As you mentioned, tonight is really directed towards getting back on track with respect to the site plan. So I have with me here tonight both Skip Francis, the project engineer, as well as Rob DuPont, who's the project architect. So not too much of a speaking part for me tonight, I don't think. So I'll let Skip and Rob reintroduce us to where we're at, and just run through the project and the site layout in general terms, and hopefully get this back on track so we can have a productive discussion with respect to the site plan approval.
I just want to say that we're not off track.
I was
The
thinking the same
seeker
thing.
is supposed to be done first before we
No,
embark upon site plan. So-
That wasn't meant to be disparaging in any way, I just meant with respect, back on track with respect to the site plan aspect of that, because we did discuss aspects of the site plan quite thoroughly early on in this process. So it's kind of just to refamiliarize the board with the site plan layout.
Okay.
And just to say that as we've been going through seeker, we have stayed very informed about the site plan itself.
Correct, yeah, and there
It's not
has...
like we stepped
No,
out.
no, no,
Okay.
none of my comments are meant to be disparaging at all.
Okay.
There were a lot of discussions at the outset regarding the buildings, the layout, things of that nature, regarding the site plan itself. And then I feel in the secret process, we kind of dug a little bit deeper into some other issues that are related to the site plan. And we did have discussions on the record that involved certain aspects of the site plan itself. But that, of course, was more in connection with the secret analysis. And this is an effort to get us to back on the site plan side of things.
Good evening, I'm Skip Francis with Creighton Manning Engineering, the site civil engineer, we're the traffic engineer, and we're the highway design engineer for the left-hand turn lane, and we're also surveyor, should the client need anything finalized with some things. Just to give it that update, the last time we submitted our preliminary plans was September of 25, and we did receive shortly after that a comment letter from CPL dated October 3rd. And I just wanted to address a few things. I can touch on that letter. In that response letter that CPL provided, many of his comments were addressed. Some of them were still remaining open. But as we've advanced through the seeker process concurrently, we as designers have been keeping pace with the environmental information, and those designs are yet pending when we come back with the next site plan package. With respect to the water and wastewater, for the site plan, coming in the entrance. Gotcha. Coming inside the driveway of the boulevard entrance, there's going to be a maintenance road off to the right. This is not a public access road, it will be gated, and we're going to use the same corridor up through this area to the well site out at the farthest point, which has been tested by WSP, and those facts have been presented through the site plan and the seeker environmental process. Along that same corridor is proposed the wastewater treatment site. There's been some discussion throughout the environmental process of the location of this wastewater treatment package unit. I just want to provide a few more points of why it is where it is. You can see that we're respecting the wetland buffer area. We are not in any of that for siting it out here. We're using the same corridor along this route. The water line will run along one side of the road, the force main and the discharge line will run on the other side of the road with applicable separation distances. And the discharge point, everything will be collected at the buildings, pumped to the treatment package plant, and then it'll discharge by gravity back to this intermittent stream classified by DEC, which falls under their jurisdiction for their permit.
Will you show the route of the intermittent stream, where it starts and where it enters what? I think
It starts back here, comes through the property, goes off property, comes back on from the Four Brothers property, crosses the existing road that's there now. There's existing pipe already here, and it continues right out through here.
And it goes through a wetland, is that it?
Yes.
It goes through the wetland and then
Yes.
it continues out of the wetland.
Yes,
Right.
runs off property, yes.
Right, and the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant will be kind of moving downhill, is that correct?
If this is
Downhill.
higher up here, yes, it will
Through
gravity,
the intermittent stream?
yes.
Which, okay,
It'll discharge at this point here, right along the side of the access road. And it'll basically meet up where the culvert crosses the road. It'll discharge at that point. It's a very small discharge. I think it's approximately, I believe it's around 5 gallons a minute, small discharge. It will be in the permit that we've spoken to in the past, but that's the location of it. And the reason other places don't work on here is you can see the wetland the wetland buffer we're respecting for the entire development really hugs the development. We know we've got to get a town wetland permit because we're crossing it for these trenches for these utilities through here, and we've got to do a little grading around some of the edges. But other sites that have been proposed or discussed, one was proposed over here through a member of the public has paid somebody to look at, and that's great to hear ideas of why another area is possible. But to put it over here, this is a very steep slope. And to place such a structure there next to the building would further require embankment construction, grading into the wetland buffer, cutting of trees, clearing of trees, and a discharge point for this distance to lay in a pipe to discharge would also further cut and disturb the wetlands. So this is the most, in our opinion, the most efficient location for the development and the most desirable overall. While we do propose also, we propose landscaping around the facility, but we're also considering painting the treatment unit. A color that's consistent with the woods, whether it's a combination of green, brown, even considering possibly even a light camouflage pattern, so it is less conspicuous at all times of year. So we're considering that. Now that is why it is located where it is located, and at this point, the agency having jurisdiction doesn't have any objection to it being there. So if I could move on from that.
Actually, before you do, earlier in the process, you had mentioned that each of the units is going to have a septic tank?
Yes.
So really what we're talking about is the treatment of the discharge effluent that would, under other circumstances, go into the soil, like in a residential on-site disposal. This is being sent to this package unit. So it's not going to be handling the clarification, the maceration, all the other processes that usually take place in like a force main system.
It'll be ground up through grinder pumps, through the pump stations, that'll pump it and push it through the force main out to the treatment plant. So it'll be reduced there through that process and then further broken down at the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, so it's not like each of these units is going to have its own tank that will get pumped out periodically.
The wet wells within the tanks, yes, will probably need some routine maintenance for solids that are down there.
Okay.
That don't get picked up through, it's part of routine maintenance, whether you have a grinder pump in your yard or a septic tank. Occasionally they do need to be just cleaned out.
Okay. So it is both the solid and liquid treatment happens at this plant.
At this plant, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I wasn't clear on that before, so thank you.
Okay. On the course of traffic, we produced a traffic study in February 25, and the site trip generations did not warrant anything such as a light or anything and no adverse impact to 9G. However, we are proposing a left-hand turn lane paid for by the developer we have presented that to DOT. They have no objection to the location that it is proposed over the length that is proposed. And as soon as we are through the seeker process, we will commence design of that process separately and directly with DOT for their jurisdictional approval and design and so forth. So that would be concurrent with the site plan. There is also a emergency access road proposed over here. Under the hypothetical and very unfortunate situation, should there be some sort of blockage at this main boulevard entrance, such as a vehicle crash, and then a medical emergency or a fire on the property, the vehicles need a place to access the site. So the purpose of this is to come in through this area here, and it is a non-DOT road, and we are proposing a paver system that allows grass to grow up to it, through it, and it will support a fire truck apparatus, and those products are available. There will be a knockdown gate or bollard systems that will prevent anyone from pulling in there thinking that it's some sort of an access driveway, but in the event, those emergency vehicles can gently push through those gates, knock lower, and then come on into the site.
They'll be at the road and
Off of the middle road. It will come in between buildings 2 and 3.
And will you have those knockdown bollards at the inside end of that road as well, so that guests don't mistakenly think they can go out that way?
Yes, traditionally, we put them on both ends. Thank you for clarifying that, yes.
You talked to Town Highway about the access to Middle Road, I can't remember. I know we're relying on DOT for Route 9G, but.
I think we only spoke to the fire chief regarding the access.
Probably we need to talk to Bob just about that access, emergency access.
And DOT has seen it too, to understand that it's not theirs and they're okay.
And
So,
I think the
yes,
request for this was reinforced when the fire department made their site visit, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
I believe that
Do you want to check on that?
Sure.
No, I can comment on that, Chair. I met with Chief Knapp, showed him the proposal. He's the one that actually suggested a second way in.
Okay.
After our engineers proposed this, we showed that to Chief Knapp and actually the entire fire crew, and they said that there was a satisfactory solution.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the last things I had was pedestrian accommodations. There is a sidewalk proposed throughout the property that connects the buildings. There's going to be a common space in the middle of the development, and this sidewalk will come out towards the frontage of 9G, and it's proposed to connect to Four Brothers Pizza. And I just want to clarify that there are no walking trails proposed throughout the development as well. So that's a quick highlight of site plan developments and information that we're considering through the secret review process. We're keeping up to speed with that during the design process on the next submission once that process closes. I will let Rob speak to anything about the buildings and/or fire protection. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I haven't been here in a while. Rob Dupont. Just a quick refresher. We're looking at a proposal. We're looking at a proposal of assortment of 4 buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4. These 3 buildings here are hotel buildings. The zoning ordinance has several restrictions with regards to building size. All of these buildings are restricted to a maximum square footage of 8,000 square feet. These 3 buildings, very similar in size, about 7,500 square feet, are also limited to a maximum of 60 guest rooms on any parcel. So each of these 3 buildings has 20 guest rooms associated with it, 2 stories, basically 10 to the floor. The guest rooms vary in size. Basically, we have 2 types. We have a 360 square foot unit that's for 2 beds, and then we have single bed units with a covered balcony included. I believe it's 280 square feet. Overall, we're under the threshold of the 8,000. This building is a unique animal. That's our administration building. This is actually a mixed occupancy building. We have our hotel lobby entrance on the first floor here. The rest of it is basically maintenance, storage, and maintenance equipment for the property. Access road actually travels through this building like a gateway. Second floor, over top of the lobby entrance, is our dining room. We are going to serve breakfast for the hotel guests. And then the top floor, which is basically like a half story, is an accessory apartment, 1,000 square feet. That's for a resident manager for the property. One of the things that the building code requires for these buildings is sprinkler coverage, fire protection. Okay? These are R1 occupancy, hotel, must be sprinklered. The storage is small enough where a sprinkler isn't required, as is the business office for the main entrance. But the second floor, the dining room, that's considered assembly occupancy, must be sprinklered. And the top floor, the accessory apartment, also has to be sprinklered. So as a result, all of these buildings will be fully sprinkled. Now, I know one of the concerns that the public had was water usage from the site. We've done our calculations with regards to the typical usage, toilets, flushing, sinks, and showers for the buildings, right? As well as what the dining room was used. But the sprinkler system was one of the questions that was asked. I've been working with a consultant with regards to this. We'll also have an engineer that's going to do the final design on it. Now that we're getting back into site plan review, we're looking into this in more detail. But normally when we do a sprinkler system for a commercial occupancy like this, we have municipal water, which is easy. It's pressurized water, and we just tap into that. We don't have that luxury here. I've worked on one other project, actually, in the town of Livingston, where we did an event space, and it had a similar circumstance, no municipal water. So basically what you have to do for a system like that is you have to have a room that has fire pumps in it to drive the water through the system, and you have to have an emergency water source. All of these buildings will have an independent underground water tank, and they're big. The exact design hasn't happened, but I can tell you the event space that I did previously was about 7,200 square feet, so a little bit smaller than these buildings, although it was full assembly for a lot of people. I think 350 people we could have in there. And that building required a 15,000 gallon underground water tank. So it's about 8 foot in diameter, about anywhere from 30 to 40 feet long. We don't know the exact size of the tanks that are going to be here, but it's going to be somewhere in that range. Might even be smaller, I'm not exactly sure. But they'll all be buried, okay? And then the piping is going to go into the basements. Most of these buildings are slab on grade, but we do have basements under the main entrances here, and also under this part here. The rest of it is all slab on grade. In those basins will be utility use. That's where our utility is going to come in, and that's where our fire pumps are going to be as well. The tanks themselves will be buried in front of each of these buildings. So no one will see them. There's just a manhole cover for access for inspections. And also, we don't fill those tanks using the wells. A tanker truck fills these. And when I talked to my sprinkler guy, I said, well, how often does the water have to be recycled? When the water is in these tanks, it's basically dark and it's cold. So growth typically does not happen. They are inspected annually. Cover's opened up, and they do an inspection of the water. They also test it chemically to make sure. They also do an annual fire test for these, so they will use some of that water, which will be replenished by the wells. But it's a minority of what the system actually is going to hold.
It's replenished by the wells, but not the tankers.
Correct. The initial fill will be done by tankers, so that'll be brought in. The annual refill will be topped off by the wells. That's true.
But if it only be topped off, it wouldn't be a complete replacement?
Correct. Right.
This stored water, is that the water that's used during busy periods?
No.
No.
It's completely inert. It just stays in the tank and gets
So
into the
there
fire.
are additional storage tanks then, correct? As I understood it, for water use for, the busy times in the morning.
For domestic use?
Yes.
For showers and things?
Yeah.
That'll be in the basements of the various buildings. But those would be much smaller than what we're talking about.
Right.
We have to have, and
It's a
again,
completely separate system.
it's a completely separate system, correct. And we have to have a worst case scenario as far as water availability. That's why these tanks are so large. If the entire structure catches on fire and the sprinklers have to operate for a long time, we need to have that much water at our immediate use. So yes, it's completely separate, and for the most, it's not even really going to be used. It's just there as a reservoir in the event of
And
emergency.
so what do you estimate the size of the tanks to be for domestic use?
That hasn't been calculated yet, but it'll fit inside the basements that we have. We can certainly calculate that and let the board know.
Okay. And that will be filled by the well?
Correct. Yeah, that's the regular replenishment that the well is going to be.
Right, right. It
I
was,
think it's 7,000 gallons a day, we've had it, or something like that, right? Yes. 7,200, yeah.
right, it was our understanding that that would take care of, 60 rooms showering at the same time in the morning.
Correct.
Kind of thing.
Yes, that's right, and that's separate.
Okay. That it?
Well, if anybody has any other questions, we've talked about these buildings a lot. I didn't bring the model tonight, but that's basically a good summary.
Okay. Sean, anything else?
No, not from me right now. I think just if the board or Jim has any specific questions that you'd like us to drill down on a little bit. Eddie had some good questions about the water. I know that had come up in the context of secret as well. So if there's any other questions, things of that nature that you'd like us to provide further detail on, we're all ears.
I have some questions.
Let me start with Jim. Anything, Jim, you want to bring up first?
No, unless we want to get into discussion of the construction document that was submitted, but that was Sea Grants, the construction document that was submitted last Friday.
Yeah, that was more geared towards the...
It's geared towards seeker, but it's still
Alright, so let's
site plan.
wrap
I think
up
we can,
this new-
yeah, I think we can leave that out for now.
We'll leave that out for now and go to Edmund.
I'd like to talk about the wastewater system. Do we have, well, I guess we could start.
You might want to use your microphone then.
Yeah, thanks. The wastewater system, what is the height above ground? Roughly, of the wastewater
Oh, the treatment
unit?
plant. Maybe 8 feet,
8 feet.
but we can partially compare that as well. So,
And is it on relatively flat ground or is it sloped there?
Relatively flat ground. It's about the size of a medium-sized shipping container. Length, height, width, and like Rob said, we're planning to recess it somewhat into the ground. They're commonly lowered in that fashion.
So then it could be fenced, correct?
It will have a security fence around it, for sure.
It could be fenced with, to make it not visible.
Oh, I see.
With it would fence.
So the fence, the code for a fence is 6 or 8 feet. I'm not quite sure in the town.
You might need a variance if the fence were high
Yeah.
enough to cover the unit.
Which people apply for routinely.
Right.
No, I understand. I was just saying that the question was whether or not a fence could be installed that would, you could install a fence around the
Well, since you're
20-foot structure that would cover
indicating you
it.
have to have a security fence to begin with, so I
Yeah.
take that to mean there will be a fence.
Correct.
At least chain link with
Well, I
lockable.
think where we're
because
going in the direction here is
It's
perhaps we need to
concealed.
be looking at all the options for fencing so that we get greater invisibility and all of that, so.
We can consider that. You raise a good point, and if the structure, for instance, is 8 feet high and it's recessed 2 feet, and a 6-foot maximum fence is allowed, then no variance is needed. But
Correct.
we can decide what material that fence is going to be to help further obscure it.
Right, and if it needed to be a foot higher, to totally obsure it, then you could certainly get a variance, I'm sure. The idea would be for it the wood to blend into the environment to make it more invisible.
Understood.
Sorry to, is there any kind of a safety railing around the top of this for maintenance?
Generally, in the pictures, I have seen such a railing in the catalog cut sheets, and we've even provided one previously, and I believe it's evident in that picture as well.
Okay, and are those required by code or by OSHA to be painted yellow or some sort of a high visibility?
Don't know that answer.
Okay.
Good question.
Because that's, you know, you're gonna go to all the trouble of screening this big brown thing,
Then you have the railing.
and you have the big yellow railing sticking up that kind of
Understood, yeah.
fails, so. anyway.
What about lighting? Is there any need for continuous lighting
Lighting at the site or at the wastewater treatment?
at the wastewater treatment?
I believe those can be light, motion sensitive, so when the vehicle pulls up, should it pull up at night, that it can come on when it enters the driveway, inside the gate. The gate will, back to that point for a minute, it will be secured because it will be operated by a licensed wastewater treatment operator. Should there be an alarm or a notification that the unit puts out, the servicing personnel would pull in, and that would probably trigger the light, or maybe it's a manual switch.
Okay, but it's not going to have a light shining at night all of the time? It would only be when
not
someone
continuously
approaches?
all the time, no.
Okay, and you mentioned that it would be serviced by a licensed,
Wastewater treatment operator.
okay. Do you have any idea how often that would occur?
They're generally self-manageable. I'm H2M is our wastewater engineer. I believe they're relatively self-manageable, but they do need to be checked periodically, and I don't know if it's bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly, but there are alarm systems and notification systems on the device that go out to the arranged provider to do that. It's not somebody that's living on site. I'm sorry?
You'll be able to inform us of what that regular schedule is.
Yes, I believe it's a function of the DEC permit process that's stipulated there.
So those visits would be checking visits? But
Most
then there
likely
would,
during daytime hours.
Right.
At night.
and then there would be occasional visits to pull out solid material, is that correct?
I don't believe so.
Well,
It all
how-
breaks down through the process and treatment process. It just breaks down. That's part of what it does. The specifics of that, I will defer to H2M when we present those materials.
Will H2M be presenting that information themselves in the future?
Yes, you're just going to be here tonight.
Oh,
Okay.
that'd be good. All right, let's see, do I have anything else on this? I guess not. Thank you.
I didn't know whether any of the planning board members had questions about odor control for the wastewater treatment facility.
Odor control.
I believe Mr. O'Neill with H2M had answered that before. It does have a odor scrubber to it, and they are relatively odor-free. This is not an open maintenance, an open municipal wastewater treatment plant like you would normally think.
So
It doesn't smell
perhaps
so
you put that on your checklist of things to answer when they come to present to us.
Yes.
Yeah, and if it's relatively odor-free, if they can be prepared to discuss what the difference is between that and odor-free.
Samples would be good.
You want?
It would also be great for them to address just sound, noise, questions about it too.
Well, if I recall, from some time ago, the use of the dining room has been reduced significantly to the breakfasts and an occasional something, but this is not intended to be a wedding venue,
No.
a rental, an outside rental, so that to me contributes to the reasonableness of noise.
Sorry, and
Yeah,
then
I
the
think
noise
she was-
related to the
Oh, to the-
The
treatment
operation of the
system.
wastewater
Yeah,
treatment plant?
Yeah, just
I'll-
like how loud is it?
Okay.
I'll speak with Neil O'Connor. He's been here in the past, but
Okay.
I'll give him a little list of things that he should be ready to
Okay.
present.
I have a couple.
One of the things for the board to keep in mind is, we've been stymied by the seeker process. We haven't been able to design that system. Our
Well, you haven't
engineers
been
haven't been able to
stymied.
design. Well, we just don't have more, exact information because we haven't been able to get through
No,
seeker, which will allow us to design
We
it.
heard you say that.
Yeah, so
That's
we'll
what
be able
we're
to present
working
that.
towards.
So just so that I'm clear, sound, odor, screening with the fence
Screening
and with the railing. The railing, I saw that in some of the photos.
Light and service schedule.
Thank you.
And I believe we also talked about, heavy landscaping or,
That, like screening.
Yeah.
Yeah, in addition
We've
to
always been
fences,
willing to
in
do
addition to
that.
fences, yeah.
Yep, no problem.
I have another landscaping question.
Around the wastewater treatment or just?
No, unless we're not done with that yet.
I think we're done with that.
Okay.
I'm particularly interested in the area along 9G that does not have trees.
You're talking about here?
Yeah. And there was some early discussion about that being very, very hard and rocky and not plantable, but then I think that was, there was a disagreement about that actually it is eminently plantable. So is there a plan to, what is the plan for landscaping in that area to integrate it with what is going to remain of what is there?
So if I remember correctly, I recall the discussion and I thought that we agreed to put plantings there.
Right,
Along
but
there. We don't have a planting plan right now.
Okay.
But obviously that would be something that can be developed. But we did, we were in agreement with the idea of putting screening there.
Right. I'm
Additional
simply
plantings.
bringing it up because it's a rather large area and you are going to keep as much as you can of the wooded area that is currently there between 9G and the hotel. And so I'm hoping that what will go in the area that's not planted now is something that integrates with what's already there.
Yes. And I'll see, maybe Rob might even have it in some of his older notes, but we had a discussion about that, and this is exactly why we're here tonight, so we'll look back into that and get details for you on that, Edna.
I recall Tom LeGrand said that we can scoop out the rock in areas and put in soils that will support larger plantings like trees.
Like tree pits?
Yeah. So,
I think we discussed that, and then the swale came about as a necessity, so we never really completed that discussion right here. I think that was a swale right coming out here. So, somehow working within that.
I think the planting though, just so that we're clear, I think we were talking about more in this area.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is the more bare area.
Yeah.
This is heavily vegetated,
Right.
and which is the largest portion of the frontage along here, but we can look to see what we can do in here a little bit.
And you've taken, you're going on a separate path with signage, correct? We agree to that?
That's correct.
Okay.
I spoke to Paul Bikert about that this morning, as a matter of fact. He's going to dust it off and take a look at that to start to put together a package of signage.
But this is relative to what we went through with the Ruby's property, that property, because of all the internal signage that's necessary. So it makes a lot more sense to deal with that as a separate application than to try and, deal with it at the same time that we're doing this.
I mean, even your entry signs almost certainly need a variance because the standards are so strict.
Yeah, so it's appreciated that you're willing to entertain it on two separate tracks.
And I would encourage you to take a ride through the Ruby's property, because I think in the end they did an excellent job of looking at all the different types of signage they needed, deliveries, this car here, there, whatever. And I drove on to see how it turned out. I think it turned out very well.
Okay.
So it's just, I think, a good local example of how you can address those needs tastefully and still meet the overall needs of the site-specific plan.
It's not minimalist, but it's not overwrought.
It's not
either.
overwhelming, it's
Yeah.
tasteful, and everything that's there needs to be where it is. So I just, I would use it as a template in terms of what we've observed to be successful. Anything else? Jim, where are we? And Jim and John, let's kind of recap where we are in this process now.
I have drafted, my mic died. I've drafted the part 3 for review by the board. Sent that to John, he has to take a look, so I said it would take a little bit of time, legal review, and get John can look at that. So I have updated that based on all the discussions we had over the 6 to 7 month period, so we're hoping to have that for you by the next meeting for discussion.
Okay. So, where are we tonight? Can't wrap it up for tonight?
Just reminding you of the public hearing.
Okay, so I will, again, is there anything pressing that you would like to comment on tonight, or are you okay going with the public hearing continuing in 2 weeks? Yes, Chris?
Hi, Christopher Capo, 22 Kendon Lane. I just have a question about the process, because I heard a couple of things tonight from the development team. First, regarding secret, is there a requirement to have completed plans in front of the board for a thorough secret analysis as part of your review?
No, secret technically takes place early in the process, and we review secret based on the plans that are submitted at that point, and then the board reviews them, and if something significant changes, secret can always be reopened. I don't know, John, if you want to.
That's correct.
Okay. And was there anything tonight that would require you to revisit prior secret discussions or decisions that you made?
Personally, no.
No.
I will
Okay.
ask others. I didn't personally hear anything this evening that I thought would make a big change in the discussion that we took.
Okay, so nothing about additional excavation for fire control, water reservoirs, or this concept of a fence now around this wastewater treatment plant, which I think is the first time.
Well, we always knew there'd have to be a security fence.
Okay, but it didn't come up through any of the, reviews, or the aesthetics, or the, the view from the road, or anything like that previously, so.
I think the aesthetics of the view from the road were discussed.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have looked at that.
I mean, I've often commented on the need for a structure around the wastewater plant to conceal it. But, now we are getting into the details of the site plan. So you might hear a few new things as we really bear down on every single detail of it.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I'm not asking a question that's rhetorical. I'm wondering if you guys have had enough details about the project to feel as though you've completed the, requirements for the secret phase. Because it just seems like every meeting, there's some new information presented, right? So if the answer is yes, that's...
I think the answer is yes.
At this point in the review, but the point that Heather was making is a review of the application is ongoing. We're at a point now where we are with seeker, but we'll continue to get more site-specific information. And the point remains that should anything come up in future discussions that causes us to rethink some of the determinations we made in going through the secret questions, that is obviously always on the table.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so, sorry. Yes, if it's new.
Yes, it's new. My name is Melissa Schultz, and I live at 39, oops. I live at 39 Hook Road. It's a follow-up, actually, to what we had discussed last time, but Mr. Lyons asked a question about, and I have a letter, I will submit this via email to Gretchen, I think that's the process tomorrow. But I know, Mr. Lyons, you asked last time, you talked about could some sort of escrow account or similar financial mechanism to protect neighboring wells? You had mentioned this is something that is not typically done in your experience, and you did, thank you, say, if I knew otherwise, I promised to do some research on that, and I have done research on that. The letter explains a bunch of different examples. In 2005, in Carlisle, Massachusetts.
Well, let's not go into the specifics.
Okay.
You submit that.
I will submit it along with links.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And yeah, I just want to reiterate that our families rely on private wells, and we do not feel like the testing has been adequate. And if the...
I think we're clear on that.
Okay, terrific.
So
Then
you submit that, and John can review it.
Okay.
And we'll
excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for doing the work on it. You're
Yeah.
going to submit something in writing?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll via email. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that'd be
Okay,
perfect.
excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have got this draft that's gone from Jim to John and Kim. Will you be able to take a look at that over the next 2 weeks, or how
You
do
can
you
take a
want
look at it. It just came in on Friday, so I haven't had a chance to really see
So
what's there.
we are scheduled to have a public hearing on June 15th. That was the determination, so we'll continue this, the public hearing to June 15th, and hopefully we'll have the information reviewed and we can report on that at that time.
Yeah, and just so you understand the magnitude of the draft is what, Jim, 57 pages?
40, 50, 60 pages, something?
Yeah, okay. So there is some ground to cover, definitely.
However, for the
Do our
board,
best to.
I did give you guys a really rough draft initially several months ago. I did do this in track changes, so you don't have to figure out what is new and what was older. So hopefully that will help a little bit in your review process. I originally put it together, essentially just list out summarizes the background data we use in the discussions for seeker. So that's kind of some of the backup that we use in addition to Panda and other things for the decision making that you make. So yes, it is 60 pages. You don't have to reread all of it. 90% of it is still the same as I submitted originally. So we'll keep it in track changes.
All right, so I don't even think I need a motion because I think at the last...
I just wanted to say thank you.
I just want to clarify this. I don't know that we need a motion because we already set the public hearing for June 15th. Okay.
I just have a question.
Sure.
So I think you're very close to finishing your seeker review. Could you just explain to me the process, like, do we go from there directly to building permit? Is there like an indeterminate amount of time to do more site plan review? What happens when you finish seeker?
Well, the board will take a look at the seeker document on the 15th, and we'll see where it goes from there. Seeker does have to be done and approved by this board prior to being able to do an approval resolution on the whole site plan. So we've kind of restarted site plan focus versus seeker focus. One of the things that the board does have to do that's a little bit new this year is that the DEC is requiring the board to finish seeker before the DEC will consider the applicant's application complete. So usually we want kind of like a preliminary sign-off from DEC, but they don't seem to be doing that. So in order for the DEC to do this, for us to be able to then have something come back from DEC so the board can then say, okay, we're pretty good, DEC looks good, whatever the case may be, we've got to get the seeker to the DEC saying the board has done it, so the DEC will consider the application complete, do their review, and then get something back to this board so that this board can then move forward. There's some back and forth. It's a little different than it was in the past. We usually got a little further along with DEC than we seem to be this year. So that's the process at the moment. So the seeker will be done. That will make the application complete so the DEC can do their full review on it and then get back to the board here to let them know where things stand. But ultimately, it's an outside approval, just like a DOT approval. So on a large project like this, we get as far along as we can in those review processes and then rely on the outside agencies for their final approvals. It's outside the scope of what the planning board will do.
But from a timing standpoint, wouldn't you want the presentation by the people who do this wastewater treatment plant before you finish seeker? So that you actually have, particularly since the DEC is making you wait, they're not going to give their final approval or look at a final plan until you've already finished seeker.
Well, seeker was already the board has already approved the draft of the seeker. Part 2 was done at the last meeting.
Okay.
The part 3 is the write-up that I do that just kind of provides the details on all the information that we receive that kind of supports that. That's what the board has to look at and review and approve before then that becomes something else for the project. But it's not complete until the board says it's complete and ready for being submitted to the record.
Just feels like there's a lot of detail about that particular aspect
Well,
of
there's a
it.
lot of questions that have been raised. They've submitted information previously. They've made their report. We're asking them as part of the development of the site-specific plans to come back to answer those, but to go back to it. If something arises that needs to reopen secret, that's always on the table.
So Catherine, there's two parts to the review. So part 1, which is required by state law, which is the state environmental quality review, takes place at the beginning. And the information that the board needs is guided by, you may recall from the last meeting that the board, there's an environmental assessment form, part 2, that walks through the various areas of impact that have been identified, and then there's guidance on top of that that's been provided by DEC about the parameters of those, of the inquiry into those areas of impact. And the board decided at the last minute that they, not the last minute, at the last meeting, that they had sufficient information in front of them based on the record that's been established up to this point to be able to answer the questions in the FEAF Part 2.
Okay.
And that's the basis for the Part 3. But that doesn't, so then the end of seeker then is the beginning of the next part of the process, which is the site plan review under the Rhinebeck zoning law. And that's why there'll be additional and sometimes more specific information that will be coming out as part of that review. And there'll be an opportunity for public comment on that. And the board, as was mentioned earlier, there'll be ongoing monitoring by the board during that process and to see whether any information that comes out causes the board to reconsider the position that they came to as part of the seeker review. But the standards for the two are a little bit different. And so the state wants the board to do seeker first and then move on to the site plan standards.
Okay.
I hope that helps. Sorry about that long.
No, that was very helpful. I appreciate it, thank you.
Melody, I'm wondering if we should give Delise and Sean a chance to, if you want to, talk about the issues that we discussed when you weren't here, that kind of closed out seeker. One was the issue of water, the effect on neighboring wells, and the other was this issue of soil contamination. On the issue of water, the board decided that it was no effect or a small effect, and the reasons were, first of all, what you could really call a water stress test was conducted where they continuously pumped 10 gallons a minute for 3 days. So at a rate that would not be used during normal operations. And then they looked at the effect on the Villa's well and also the effect on 2 neighboring wells. On one neighboring well, there was no effect whatsoever, and on the second, there was a 9-foot drawdown. And it was expected that under normal conditions where you're not continuously pumping, you would not see that kind of drawdown. In addition, we looked at what was done to contact neighbors, and we noted that there were 2 letters that were sent out. As I remember, it was one in July, one in September in 2023, plus a visit to everybody who did not respond. So, I mean, that was a standard good faith effort to contact people. So based on those two findings, we decided it was no effect or a small effect. And then on the issue of soil contamination, John has looked through the DEC data, the data that's available. He has not been able to find any information that there was any kind of a landfill garbage disposal on the villa's lot. And there was information that was provided to us by the neighbors, in particular, ecosystem strategies reports on soil testing that was done on Lot 3 and Lot 2. And so there was a fair amount of back and forth communication between Lyons and Granton Lyons and the DEC and the planning board. And what was discussed was soil testing on this Lot 3, A, B, and C, and then a request that it not be necessary to finish the soil testing on Lot 2 because it wasn't really involved in the 3-lot subdivision. And there was no mention of the Villas lot in any of that. In other words, it's not part of the ecosystem strategies discussion. It's not part of this communication. And so it seemed pretty clear that there was no reason to believe that there could be contamination on the Villas lot. So again, we decided that our finding was going to be no or small effect. I did have one additional thought on that, and that is that assuming that this gets to the approval stage, we could condition approval on when excavation is going on. If anything unusual is found, work must stop and the board must be contacted. I mean, that's something that we all would have to discuss. I'm not sure exactly how that would be phrased, you know, or what the next actions would be. But the applicant believes that there was never any landfill, that, you know, there is nothing discarded on the property. But if during excavation something unusual is found, then we would have a way to deal with it. So I thought you deserved to have that, you know, to hear about that, and I'd be interested to know whether you have any additional thoughts or concerns.
Do you have a comment first about the stop work?
I do have a comment about, so I just want to explain that, and I apologize to Edna that I wasn't able to respond to your inquiry prior to tonight, but so if there's material that's unearthed during excavation, there's a variety of possibilities of what might happen depending on what the nature of that material is. So just saying, for example, if it were to be hazardous material, then there's in state law, there's a reporting threshold for that, and then there's a program for remediation under state law that the DEC would be the agency that would pursue that. And the reporting would go, if the threshold is exceeded, whoever's doing the excavating there is the party that should be reporting that directly to the DEC. If there's petroleum found there, then that's under a different program. Again, the Department of Environmental Conservation would be the party. There are reporting thresholds for if you uncover loose petroleum in the ground, and again, that would be reported directly by the parties on site to the Department of Environmental Conservation, and DEC would follow the petroleum remediation program that's been provided by the state. If there's just solid waste material on there, I'm not sure what the reporting threshold is for that, but again, that comes under the jurisdiction of the DEC. And I think that rather than having a condition in any approval that involved reporting to the board, I think that a more appropriate condition would be that if any, that the applicant is going to comply with applicable state law with regard to any kind of waste that is found on there, if any, and that that they would just simply notify the planning board if any reporting ends up to the DEC ends up taking place pursuant to any of the DEC's jurisdiction over the site.
Yeah, well, and also there's the role of the building inspector during construction when they're on site. I mean, to be aware of conditions such as that. I mean, at that point, that person would be our eyes and ears in the field.
Yes,
Would be the
yes.
town's
And I'll
eyes.
just say that what my experience has been with these kind of situations, the professionals that will be on site, or the engineers and supervisors are, in my experience, are very familiar with what the reporting requirements are, and it'd be up to them to take the first step. The building inspector won't be on site all the time.
Well, no, that's absolutely true, but I would remind the board, and I would share with the public, that in the last few years, as we have approved larger projects like Soho, the train approvals on Astor Courts, workforce housing, we work with the town board and the applicants to identify a supplemental inspector for those projects, because the size and scope of them is beyond the capacity of a part-time building inspector. And so that allows the inspection process to go more smoothly for the applicant, because they're not waiting through delays in terms of timing on the part of the local building inspector, and they find, the ones we've worked with, find it is a very cost-effective way. It costs them more because it has to go in escrow, but it speeds the process for them in terms of the actual build-out and construction. So a building inspector that's hired as a consultant through a letter of engagement with the town board and with the town would be aware of these circumstances that we consider to be sensitive. And that's just simply more in terms of communication. And there are pre-construction meetings with these outside consultants so that these kinds of discussions take place to try and, expedite the process in the most efficient way.
So that's another way for there to be more eyes on what's going on.
Yeah, because with all of the layers of these larger construction projects, if you think about Soho, if you think about workforce housing, there's a lot of moving parts when they get going, and to be waiting, to have to stop work and wait for Ed to get there, or if Ed's on vacation for 2 weeks, it just has been a very productive way. And we make applicants like this aware that this, if you recall, it was part of the resolution, the approval resolution with workforce housing, and would be part of an approval resolution here as well. I mean, it doesn't provide a guarantee of anything, but it does provide more eyes on the project as it's been.
Well, there's also the prospect of putting a stipulation or a general note on the excavation sheet for the demolition plan in the drawings, so that if anything is found, here's the process, who gets called and who gets notified. That could all be put on the plans that the building inspector is expected to enforce.
All right, so if that's, I think we're all
I just want to
set.
say that was super helpful, and I would agree with the board in the decisions made.
Thank you. We missed you both. We're sorry you weren't here. All right, so we are set for June 15th then. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Old business, we have received this afternoon a request to continue the old business discussion for Prince and Swiss. We are not aware of any new submittals that have come from this applicant regarding some red lines they had in the mitigation plan, so I don't know where that is. That rests with Brian. Brian is, we are, starting in 2 weeks, there will be a new zoning administrator. Brian has been trying to keep up with it, but I just don't know where it is, and Gretchen doesn't know either.
I do. Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. So glad you're here.
So there was Brian sent a proposed violation resolution letter to the applicant. At the last meeting, the applicant was here. They indicated that there's two things going on. So one is that the original resolution letter called for the applicant to come up with a mitigation plan that would be approved by the planning board before we go forward. The applicant has proposed instead using a plan that had been developed as part of the previous approval process. We've taken a look at that possibility, and I've recommended to Brian that with some changes, I think it would be possible to use that plan that was developed as part of the earlier process. So for things, if we can reach agreement with the applicant on that, we can cut a big step out of the process for both the board and for the applicant, and then skip right to implementation as soon as that plan is approved. And then the other piece that's out there is the applicant had some questions about a few terms of the proposed resolution letter. We've reviewed that, and I've sent to Brian some suggested revisions that I think should bridge the gap. And the only other item that was open was we needed an estimate from Hudsonia for the role of reviewing the plan and going out on site after it's been implemented to make sure everything's been done properly. And we did get that estimate. It's $3,200. That's been plugged into the resolution letter, and the applicant's been made aware of it. The other issue that came up at the meeting last time, one of the complaints we had about that Appendix I plan that the applicant wanted to use is that there was nothing on that plan to address the restoration of the stone walls. The restoration of the stone walls is in the resolution letter that was proposed. The applicant's not taking the position that the applicant agrees that that has to be done. What I've done is I went back and got some of the photographs that were taken at the time of the initial violation, and the wall is shown in the background in some of those photos. So I'm proposing to Brian that he use those photos as kind of a baseline for what the restoration of the wall should look like.
And Elise provided us with a narrative sort of description that could be inserted as well.
Okay, terrific. So that's where we are. That material was sent back to Ms. Ducharme, and we're waiting to hear a reaction on that.
So then we'll continue this to June 15th, if I could have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second?
For 2 weeks.
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Jim, can you run us through the 3 ZBA referrals, and then we have a town board referral.
So the first one is a proposed fence on 308 and Patton Road. The applicant is looking to, well, he has fences up there now. This is actually in front of the ZBA right now, I believe, John. Is it still in front of the ZBA?
Yeah, and they're actually coming to planning board.
They will become the planning board.
They will be coming to the planning board.
Right. They require a variance because 2 feet, a 2-foot variance is required for 64 feet of 6-foot fencing, and 2 feet 7 inches is required for 152 feet of 6-foot high fencing, 6-foot 7 inch high fencing, because the fence overall is over 6 feet in height, which does not permit the passage of views. That's why it requires special use permit from the planning board. It also requires a variance from the ZBA.
So what would the board like to
It's just a wood fence?
do? It is, yes,
Well, it's a
But
little
it's-
complicated than that.
yeah.
Pretty transparent fence.
And it's not transparent.
Oh,
And my recollection is that
where is the fence? To the left?
when it was built, the boards were put on the wrong side of the fence, and now wants to add more boards to the other side of the fence. It's
These are
not-
great pictures.
It's the existing fence that's being added onto. Is that what?
Yes, but I believe he's also looking to replace parts of it as well.
Okay.
It also requires DEC permit because the DEC has taken jurisdiction because there is a wetland on the property that the fence is in. So it's a little complicated.
If it's coming to us, would
Yeah,
we
that's-
want the ZBA to
Wait.
wait until it comes to us? That makes the most sense to me.
I agree.
I think it's on for June 13th.
Okay.
Okay. And, could we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Case 1100, Franny.
No, Sean was next, sorry. It's on the same page as well.
Oh, doesn't matter, okay, show me.
Oh, is it different order? I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter.
That wasn't different order. Sean Dumont, the proposal for this.
That one's also coming from the planning board.
Okay, same
Right.
thing, same
Will also be
deal.
coming to the planning board, but the proposal is for a deer fence to be put up here off of Primrose Hill Road in front of the existing structure. It is, let's see, it's within 50 feet of the front lot line. A variance is required due to the fence being over 4 feet in height on the front property line, and within 50 feet of the front property line. A special use permit is required because it's over 6 feet in height.
What are they fencing?
Apple orchard, I believe.
Yeah, it says existing orchard in small text.
So it's an orchard.
Good eyes.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it's the
pretty
same
good.
deal that it's coming to us, so
Yeah,
let's
just
do the
wait.
same thing.
Okay.
Motion second on that, please. Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. All right, then, Franny.
Find it. Sorry. Trying to bring up all my files. They are proposing a detached garage, 1.5-story, 2-car detached garage accessory structure, the upper level finished for storage. The garage is heated, but not have any water or septic connections. They will have electricity and a connection just for a standby generator that will provide power to both the home and the garage. They need an area variance of 22 feet 5 inches to construct the garage 15 feet from the side property line. It is proposed to be in front of the principal structure. They need an area variance of 10 feet because the structure doesn't meet the 100-foot front yard setback. The property currently has 4 roof structures on it, making this one the 5th structure, which results in a total of 2,982 square feet of accessory structures on the property. So they needed variances for 2 accessory structures over the 3 permitted and for 1,482 square feet of accessory structure square footage. I don't believe this one's coming to the planning board.
Where is it located?
This is on Knollwood Road.
Oh, it's on Knollwood.
So this is the house, these are some of the other
Uh-huh.
structures that are on there,
Yeah.
and it's over on the corner here.
I don't have a major problem with it.
Yeah, I would agree with you, so.
And this is simply a garage.
Garage with space at the top for storage.
Does, with no septic, sewer,
Or water,
or
just
water
electric,
attached.
All right, so it is a matter of,
matter of ZBA using their own study of the facts.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. Motion second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The last bit of business is, I'm happy to announce, the town board has taken up the discussion of amending the signage, or portion of the signage in the local law. Jim can explain that. This is one of the things that the planning board has been talking about and advocating, so this is actually a positive thing here.
So, as you know, we talk about signage a lot and the issues with the signage in the town. One of the issues that I have been working on with Brian quite a bit over the past year was related to, as we regularly see, new uses that come into Astor Square. Essentially, every time a use came into Astor Square, it had to come in for a variance. Brian had been working with the owner for quite a while, discussing about doing a master plan. I think I mentioned that to the board before. Eventually, we came to the realization that we didn't think a master plan was going to happen, so we said, let's just redo the zoning. So we did that, and I worked with Brian to write up an amendment that did go to the town board attorney for permanent signs within essentially districts that have multiple uses on the property, on the same property. And so the law that's been put in there now, I didn't get into detail in my write-up, but it essentially provides for the sign sizes that we've been seeing coming before the board in the past. So it's allowing for essentially 2 signs of a moderate size, one on the door, one on the building. Obviously, you can put one out front here, on the board out here. We actually loosened this one up a little bit because I actually think these are a little small. So we loosened it up that these signs, as long as they're all made consistent, could be made bigger and made in touch potentially. So we opened that up a little bit so this could be bigger, but not increase the overall size of this sign itself. But there's a lot of kind of wasted space on there, and I think that the users could use a little more. So if it's there, why not? So that's effectively what it does. It should prevent someone from having to come into the planning board, come in for a variance to the ZBA for signage in here, unless they want something that's kind of out of the ordinary. So I believe they get 2 signs for their use and 1 out of the road. And they'll all be generally consistent, but they can vary in colors and designs and things like that. It's mostly the sizing.
Good job, Tim.
Yeah.
I did it, Brian did it, town attorney took a look at it. It's been a long time coming, it's been probably a year we've been working on this.
So, we're just replying to the referral from the town board saying, we think this is long overdue and a good solution to an ongoing problem that we've had. And we want to thank them for doing this and encourage them to look at all of the other things that we outlined in our February memo, that I would build that into this. This is a great start.
Which you can attach to your reply.
Attach it to the reply that we've yet to hear from them.
I was going to say, like, the public probably thanks them for doing this.
The public thanks them for doing this. They make it very good.
Make their job a little less challenging when they're trying to put a sign up.
Yeah.
And go through all the extra expenses of the ZBA and everything else.
Yeah, so.
Nobody really wanted to have to go through this process. The boards didn't want to do it, no one needs to do it. It needed to be simplified,
Yeah,
so.
no, that's awesome.
This is a win-win, but if we can turn that into putting a little emphasis on,
On basically sticking it to them.
yeah.
Give us a couple more wins.
Well, this is a great start, and, we'd be happy to talk to them at any time about how we would prioritize the other things that are still, need to be discussed.
Good.
So, motion,
So moved.
second, in favor, motion to adjourn.
Whoa, slow down.
Get right back.
So moved, yeah.
Thank you, second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody, not too bad.
All right.